Now, backing vocals is something you've got to be really careful with, and what I'm going to do today on this video is I'm going to show you in depth how I would put some backing vocals down on a recording and then do some mixing. So above all else, the main issue is timing, is making sure that if you do parts that work with a lead line or parts on their own, which is what I'm going to show you now, it's about getting the timing absolutely spot on between those parts. Tuning, obviously it's important, but don't forget the human voice in a sea of these sort of digital instruments which are all very tuned exactly to A equals 440. Those little tuning variations that you have in backing vocals can be a really good thing and give it that sort of live human edge. So I've got on my iPad here, I'm going to use GarageBand to do this as well so that you can see how easy it is to do on here. If you can do it on here, it works on any digital audio workstation in the same way, but with a finer degree of detail when you come to mix. So I've just done a sort of C minor reggae sort of thing, so this is a little excerpt of it. I've done a reggae video on GarageBand as well, and sort of how to put those parts together, and feel free to check out my channel. So I'm going to add a part. Now at the moment you are listening to the narration of this film on a separate mic that I've got over here, so this isn't the iPad mic that you're listening to, but I'm going to find the audio recorder and I'm just going to go instrument. Actually, I don't want a voice program at the moment. I want to have I think it's called Fun Clean. There we go. So I am literally just recording straight, no effects at all. So I'm going to record four harmony parts to this, and you can hear how they're going to sound together afterwards. So here we go. Okay, so there's a few problems with that. It's a little bit wavery on those notes. But what I'm going to do first is just to check that I'm happy with those harmonies that I had actually worked out beforehand. I've written them out on sort of conventional manuscript paper. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just record the four parts. I recorded the second to top part there, so there is a higher one. But I'm going to record the lower two parts and then just have a quick listen to see if it works with that backing track. So all the working out that you do will come to nothing if you find it doesn't work with your underlying chord sequence. So here's the second part. Now, just before I do this, because I'm recording all of these backing vocals, and therefore it's the same voice and I'm the same distance away from the microphone, I'm actually going to move very slightly because you get phasing issues. If you're doing all the backing vocals, change your position with respect to the mic ever so slightly for every vocal you do, because you can get two parts that are so similar that they can actually work against each other in terms of the phasing of the waves on your recorder. So I'm going to move ever so slightly this way perhaps and do my second part. Here we go. What you want to be, 'cause I want to be me. Okay, so I'm going to do the third part, then I'm going to have a quick listen because the timing of those first bits wasn't so good, and it really does need to be, because it really does stick out. If you've got something that is slightly out of time, it will stick out like a sore thumb. The other way you can get away with this is to record lots of each part, and I'll go through that in a minute. So here is the third part. What you want to be, 'cause I want to be me. So I'm just going to have a very quick listen to that. Now on GarageBand you can see the three parts here, so you can sort of, if there's a part that's out of time, you can actually see which is sort of suspect. What you want to be, 'cause I want So I'm going to record, actually I'm going to record the final part, the upper part. Now I forgot with that third part to move slightly with respect to the mic, but it's more critical actually if you are singing the same note more than once, because different notes have different wavelengths. The phasing problem is not so critical, but I'm still going to do it anyway because I also get slightly different sound, and if you're doing lots of backing vocals it's nice to get those different sounds from one voice. So here we go from the start once again. I'm going to come away from the mic slightly. This is a top part, don't cringe too much. What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me. Okay, so I'm going to have a little listen to that. What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me. Now, depending on your vocal range, there is going to be one track which is within your range on these harmony parts that will naturally be louder because you're able to deliver more power. For me, that was the lower parts. So what I'm going to do, the upper part is at the bottom here, which, you know, maybe I should actually move it to the top, but actually don't worry about it now. I'm just going to take the bottom parts down a little bit and the top parts up a bit more. What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me. That's okay. That's all right. Now, one thing you can do also on GarageBand or any of the digital audio workstations is you can pan these parts a little bit. So I'm going to spread them around the stereo image ever so slightly. And actually thinking about it, I'm going to increase the treble and decrease the bass on all of these channels. Now, decreasing bass is very important because you don't want there to be lots of rumbly bass end on your backing vocals, because when you're mixing your bass drum and your bass guitar and your low instruments, you'll think this is sounding really muddy. And it could be that there are low frequencies on other parts that don't actually need to be there at all, and they interfere with your mix. What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me. Okay, now if I'm recording this for some sort of commercial release, I will be doing more parts than just the 4 here. So at the moment it's okay, there are things happening. What I'm actually going to do is take the parts down ever so slightly also with respect to the overall mix, because these are backing vocals, they're not meant to be in your face. So I'm just going to take them down, and I'm also going to apply a little bit of compression to each one so that they still have power even though they are lower in the mix. And what the compressor is doing is essentially creating more of a blanket of sound rather than a spiky sound, because what it does is it limits the loud bits. It brings them closer to the quiet bits, and then you can raise the level afterwards, overall level, to get something that is much more uniform. And that's what you would do really with lots of vocal parts when you're recording anyway. What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to record 2 more of the very top part, because for me that is one of the less stable parts, is the top one. So if you record 3 of each vocal, you can actually not get away with it so much, but if you have minor inaccuracies in one part, you can actually mask them with the other 2 parts that are the same. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to record 2 more of those top parts. What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me. Okay, so one more of those. I'm just going to go to the plus symbol. Now on GarageBand you have 32 tracks to record on, so you can do all this. That's 32 mono tracks, so if you use stereo tracks they actually do take up 2 tracks each. So it's only 32 mono tracks, but there's still plenty of tracks to use on this. So one more part of the high vocal, and I'm going to change position again slightly.
What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me.
That was the best one of the high vocals that I've done. Now, the reason I've homed in on this track now is that I'm actually going to go into my settings and I'm going to put that one in the middle of my panned tracks, and then I'm going to send the other 2 of the high ones quite far over to left and right, so I get a nice stereo image of those 3 upper parts, and then the other parts underneath are kind of gluing it together around the middle of your stereo image.
What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me.
Okay, so that's sounding a little bit tighter now for me, because if I just solo out those 3 high parts, you can hear that they are essentially one thing now. Any little inaccuracies can be hidden.
What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me.
Ooh. There was one longer part there than the others. Now, that's going to be a problem. And it's actually the top one. You can see on the waveform here, just here, the word I actually carried it on here. I don't want that. I don't want that to happen. So actually I'm going to get rid of that part, and it's a good job because it was actually the first part that I recorded which wasn't so good. So there's a double whammy there. Now I switched off the metronome so that I could hear the backing vocals more clearly, but I'm actually going to record that top part just once again.
What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me.
Okay, that was a bit better. I'm a bit more familiar with these parts now, so I'm just going to listen to those 3 parts back. Wrong parts. Okay, just go back.
What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me.
That's tighter now. That is much tighter than having a word that's a phrase that's too long, or a word that's too long. That really does stick out. Even when it's in the mix, you think it doesn't have the clarity that it should have. So
What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me.
now, the very lowest part, you could change the EQ slightly to make it sound a little bit less present. If you've got lots of sibilance in one backing vocal, you can get away with reducing that in other tracks, so that the other tracks really are bolstering the top line, but with more of a sort of mellow edge. Now on GarageBand here, you can, well, any digital audio workstation, you can actually sort of access the EQ in a more pictorial way. So I've just taken that low vocal,
What you want to be.
so I've taken the sibilance, leaving essentially just the notes when you compare it to the other parts.
What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me.
There we go. Now, it's also important with any backing vocals or any acoustic parts, and I do this with strings as well, is to make sure that if you are taking breaths, if you're going, what you want to be goes up, is not to make the breaths too loud if you can, but also to try and make them in the same place. Don't forget that breathing is actually quite a loud thing that you do, and it's part of a vocal take. You know, when you listen to, you know, any song recorded, you can hear the breaths. They are part of the whole vocal thing for obvious reasons. But what I need to do is to make sure that I've cleaned up all my parts at the end. And here in this sort of environment, I'm just going to cut the end of the track. There we go. Just do that. And I could do that at the beginning as well, because any noises that you can cut out of your mix, any extraneous little bits or little hiss or whatever, cleans things up. And that's especially true in GarageBand. All the backing vocals you're hearing here are recorded with the internal mic only of the iPad, and I think you'll agree it's a pretty impressive tool, really, the iPad, just to get that. But you know, if you're using a conventional microphone, the same is true to a certain extent. If you record lots and lots of tracks, the noise level on each track, they will add together, creating really quite a bit of a din if you've got a cheap mic or a preamp that's not very good, or any sort of noisy cables. Anything like that will multiply as you do your tracks. So I'm just going to listen to the backing vocals on their own now, because I want to listen out for extraneous noises. Whey! I've accidentally moved a track. That was silly. There we go. It's because I didn't grab the end of it properly. There we go.
What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me.
Okay, there we go. And there it is. There is how to do some backing vocals here on GarageBand. The processes are exactly the same, whatever digital audio workstation you use, or indeed if it's a tape recorder or a multi-track recorder with a mixing desk. Now, that's 3 parts together, and then the 3 supporting parts, I've only recorded 1 of each. Don't record 2. Unless it's a double track vocal, lead vocal, which is very, very sort of in vogue in the sort of mid-80s, and it can work really well. And if you're a good singer and you've practiced your line, it can be really good. But generally speaking, if you're going to record multiples of things, record in odd numbers, not even. So you record 1 part, 3, 5, 7, 9. Avoid recording 4 parts. Now, one of the reasons for that is that you can have one of your vocals in the middle, and then the other 2 can be panned left and right. So you've still got that sort of integrity of that, the vocal that sort of sits in the centre of your stage, of your stereo image, and then you've got the sort of the left and right, the surround sound, if you will. So it's very important to get that sort of balance right, and also to mix these backing vocals so that it goes with the track and the backing vocals aren't too loud and you can hear the track in the background. See that bass one? That's too loud now because I increased the mid-range on it. It's actually, the more bass you add and mid-range, the level goes up. Treble is not so level intensive. In fact, it's something like 90% of the energy in a wave is below 200 Hertz. So if you add lots of bass to something, you are increasing the level by a huge amount.
What you want to be, 'cause I wanna be me.
It also depends on your lead vocal. You know, if you've got something going in the background, like, I don't know, let's try something fun, clean. Okay, here we go. Why me? Who do you want me to be?
What you want to be.
I don't know, just made up those words on the spot, but it's something like, with that lead vocal sound, you can see that I sang much louder, and I'm actually just going to, beg your pardon, I'm just going to put some effects on that. I'm just going to put a compressor on my lead vocal and perhaps take the treble up a little. Why me? Who do you want me to be? What you want? I won't use any echo. Why me? Who do you want me to be? What you want to be? So those backing vocals, they're still below that lead vocal. They're not interfering with it at all. You can hear the lead vocal, and if you listen another layer down, you can hear those backing vocals. And that's really where you want those to sit. It's below your lead line or your solo, if you've got a sax solo, or guitar solo, or whatever. So, why me? Who do you want me to be? I mean, my vocals, the backing vocals, could actually come down a little bit in level from that, from where they are at the moment, just to really support rather than take over. What you want? Why me? Who do you want me to be? What you want to be? That is sounding a bit better. It really is separating that lead line from the supporting parts. So there we go. There is a method of recording backing vocals. Don't forget, it's more about timing than tuning. If you get your timing spot on, any tuning inaccuracies actually sometimes could be quite welcome, because, as I said, you're recording something real against a load of software instruments, which gives it that sort of individual edge. And there we go.